Welcome to the ESA 630 CNC 2-axis press brake training video. In this video we're going to show you how to use the ESA 630 2-axis CNC controller, and we'll be using the GMC 10-foot 135-ton press brake for this video tutorial. When you first turn the computer on, this screen will pop up that you see in front of you here. When you go and you put the hydraulics on, it's going to pop up with a warning asking you to size the ram up. When using the ESA 630 CNC controller, when you're done with your work for the day, the ram must always be in the down position. The next time that you turn the ram on, it'll ask you to size it up. If it's already up and you step on the up pedal, it will try to make the ram go further up and will pressurize the hydraulics and freeze up the machine. So on this particular machine and other ones that use this controller, there'll be a warning label that says always make sure the ram is down before turning the machine on again. So in this particular case, we want to size up the ram. You'll see from the machine itself that the ram is down, the punch and the die are inside together. So we'll go and we'll size up and step up. Now when we go back to our screen, the warning has gone away. Now let's go through some of the screens and show you what they are and what they're for. If you want to create a new program, you can go over here to the menu, to the editor, and you can type in new program, or you can go over to this list up here and you see a list of existing programs. And down here at the bottom, you can create a new numeric program or a new graphic program. Numeric is where you're going to type everything in numerically, line by line. And on the graphics, you will draw the part in as you want. On the numeric portion, if you start numerically, you have to stay that way. On the graphic, if you draw it in a graphic mode, then you can also see the code as well. But in the numeric version, you will not be able to see the graphic if you started it that way. So we'll start with the numeric one first. You'll get this blank screen over here, and we can start filling in all the information. So up here we have pieces to do. Well, pieces done will be nothing because you haven't done anything yet. Pieces to do, we can type in, I want to make 10 parts. The measures. When you highlight these numbers here, it'll pop to a pop-up screen. It gives you a description of what the different numbers to enter in this screen are for. In this particular case, it's asking you, do you want to put the measurement of the back gauge where the, if you put a 0, it'll be for external measurements. If you want to put a 1, it's a neutral. And then if you want to go down here, you move it down and do a 2, it's going to be internal measurements. So when you begin to make the part, you select if you want a 0, 1, or 2 for how you want the back gauge to offset. So if you want to make a 1-inch flange, then and you want that to be on the inside of your bend, then you'd want to select number 2. Down here for development, it's asking you if you know that's what the blank size is that you have. In this particular case, we don't know that. The width over here is how wide is the piece that you want to make. You could put that in The thickness. Now in this particular punch and die that's in this machine for this video, we're using a specialty tooling that was made for this particular brake. It's an acute punch with a square die. It's designed to do regular, very light gauge materials, no heavier than like 14 gauge, and you can do regular 90-degree bends with it. You can also do acute bends, and you can also hem all in the same tool. So we're just going to select a light gauge material, which we have is a 22 gauge, which would be 030. Down here we're going to select the material type, which in this case will be steel, and we highlight that, hit OK. The station we don't have to worry about because this particular controller and this press brake is not using a lot of axes, so there's no additional stations that would come into play if you were doing something like a Z1, Z2 fingers, something like that. So down here we can select the die, and you'll see we have a couple of different dies here, but we have this one that we had custom made. It's a square die with a very deep groove. So we're going to select that because that's what's in the machine. We'll also go over here to this punch, and we had a matching punch made, and we're going to put that one in and insert that as well. Now we come over to the middle, and it's going to ask for our angle. So even though it says Y1, Y2, this is only a Y1 press brake that we're using today for this video. This controller can work with other press brakes that have Y1, Y2 independent cylinders left and right that are adjustable. This one is not that. So in our case, we can just put in a regular angle, and it will apply for both the Y1 and the Y2. So you'll see that it has the same angle. The LDC is the low dead center. It's the lowest point. It's already basically setting the stroke for us. And we haven't made any parts yet, so we don't have anything to correct. I always suggested that you profile every part first, check it out, make sure that your angle is good, make a test bend, measure the bend, and then come back here and correct it, positive or negative if you need to, if you underbent it, overbent it, etc. And then set your back gauge. So whatever you want it to be would be right here. If you want a back gauge retract, because you're going to have a collision, you can set that there. And you'll see where the correction is because we set an internal measure. So the back gauge is now offsetting 5 thousandths because of our material thickness and because we want to go with an inside measurement. Over to the right column here, you'll see where it says TDC. That's our top dead center. That's where the ram returns after the bend. We can adjust that higher or lower if we only want to go a little bit above the die. We can certainly do that. Maybe set it to like 1 inch, or we can set it to like 2 inches if we don't want it going back up all the way every time. Right below that is the force. The part that we set was for 22.5 inches on 22 gauge, and at a 90-degree bend, it's only requiring 2.7 tons of pressure. This particular controller set for this machine does not have programmable tonnage, so this is more for informational purposes. It is kind of a gauge to let you know where your tonnage is going to be in case you're getting too close to the maximum amounts. On some options of the machines of this controller, they come with programmable tonnage, and you can certainly adjust your tonnage accordingly to what you want it to be, as long as it's within guides. This machine that we're on today does not have CNC crowning. It has hydraulic crowning manual. So the crowning in this case doesn't really do anything for this machine. The CST also does not apply to anything that we're doing today, so we're going to leave that blank. The pinch point, if we wanted to alter where the pinch point would be, when we're bending, you can adjust that. The computer automatically selects the optimal pinch point based on what we've programmed. It does the same thing for the muting. The muting is where the press brake begins to slow down. There's two speeds. There's a fast approach speed, and then there's a slow down speed. So the muting point, if you want to adjust where that's going to be, if you want to start it earlier, you can. So if you wanted it to be a little bit above the die, you could set it at like a ½ an inch, and it would adjust there. The bend time that you need to set is based upon what you're bending, material thicknesses, degrees, and things like angles and things like that. It's kind of a trial and error. The computer sets it at 0, but for most cases that won't be enough. You will need to set it for more to get a deeper bend and the degree of angle that you want. So in our case, we'll set it for 1.25, which seems to work pretty good for this 030. The match, the speed, and the other functions don't do anything on this controller on a 2-axis. That would be for the more advanced machine. The rep/direct is if you want to repeat the same bend more than once. In this case, we don't, so we'll leave that alone. Now, if you want to add more steps, we can go up here to this arrow, and it's going to ask you if you want to insert a bend. You can hit yes, and now you can put your next degree of bend in there if you want. Do 120 degrees. You could do your back gauge at 2.5. Everything else will remain the same. You could set your ram return height wherever you want. Change your pinch point. Bend time we know is 1.25, and we can set our muting at 1/2. And you would do this for every step in the bend that you want to make. So this is how you would make your part individually for each number of steps you want to do. And then you would go up here. You can then go over to the menu, or you can go up to this disc right here, this little icon next to the delete button. You can hit that and you can save it. So if you want to call it something, test bend 1999, hit OK, hit OK, now it's saved. So if you were to go back to your program list, you can come down here below and see it's right here, test bend 1999. You would select it once, hold it again, and it'll load the program. Once you have this program made, the best thing to do is then go into the semi-automatic mode, which is right here. This is where you can try it out first. You can kind of jog it down and bend the part casually, step on the pedal with minimal pressure, and kind of just see where you're at. I would not put the part in first, just kind of check the punch and die together, let the punch come down into the die, take your piece of material on an angle, slide it between the punch and the die to make sure that you have some a little bit of wiggle room in there to know that you have clearance, because all this kind of bending for these press brakes is air bending. You're not coining anything, you're just air bending, so there has to be room between the punch, the die, and the bottom of the die and your materials. So once you've tested here, everything comes out the way you like it. You can go into the automatic mode, which is this little factory right here. So the wrench is semi-automatic. You'll see it tells you that up top, and the little house there is automatic, and it tells you there that you're in the automatic mode. So now when you step on the pedal and you run this program, and you just keep your foot in the pedal, it'll come down, make the bend, go through it, pop back up, and you're on to the next step. It'll automatically change to the next step, and you can do the same thing over and over again. So after you've done all of that, that's pretty much what you can do in these steps here. You can go back to the manual mode, which is the hand. That's the manual mode you're going to be in when the machine first turns on. And basically you just use that to go up and down to size the ram, and you're also going to be in the manual mode when you want to change your tooling. So in this particular case, you would slowly bring the ram down, and when you're in the manual mode, your press brake will always work at a slow speed. The ram will go in a much slower speed up and down for safety reasons. So you'll bring the ram down, and depending on what press brake you're using, you would have a chains or hooks on the upper and lower ram and die, and you could unblock your die, and you can lift it up, rotate it, flip it around, put it back down, and then use it to center it. So when you want to recenter, or a die or a multi-V die, you want to recenter any particular die that the punch is in the die, you're going to highlight your Y1, and you're going to come over here and use the positive and negative buttons to lower the ram into the die gradually, so you can just make the ram come down just enough to grab the die itself and center it, and then you can lock it back in place. So after you've done all that, if you want to make another program, you want to go into the graphic mode, you can come back to this program list here. Now you can come over here to new graphic. You select new graphic. It's going to want to ask you to put in some basic information, your width 22.5, your thickness 0.030, your material steel, the die, we're going to select the one that's in the machine insert, and the same for the punch. The die orientation is like if you have a multi-way V die and you have multiple V's on the same side that you're working on, you can select an orientation to tell it which one of those 2 or 3 you're going to use. The punch is going to select the one that we already have, and the measures 2 for internal. Once you've done all that, you hit OK. Now you come up to a drawing screen over here. You can minimize this if you want, and it'll put the drawing over here. The numbers that you want are going to be on the first line here. This little L is for length, and the alpha is for angle. So if you want, you can type that in manually. You can put it in there and say you want 4 inches. It'll give you that. Come down here, you can zoom it in, zoom it out. You can come over here with this and kind of move it around if you select that. You can also come over here and tap it if you want. So if you want to make the next line, you can do that. You can tap the lines. It'll automatically fill in the angles for you based on which way you're going. Or you can enter in the angle you want by the arrows over here, or you can type the angle in yourself. So you get something that kind of looks like that. I'm just making something up as I go along. I can't really say it's right or wrong. It's just something that we made up. Right down here below, these next 3 lines down, this doesn't apply to what we're doing here. This is for a completely different kind of formulating, which is very complex for doing very complex shapes where you want to find distances between angles and things like that, but that's not anything that we'll be using it for. We're going to stick with the basics right here. So once we've made all the lines that we like, we can come over here and come down to this general data. Oops, I'm sorry, it's the wrong button there. We're going to go over to calculate. So hit calculate, and it's going to come over here to a bend sequence screen. So the bend sequence screen over here, what you're going to do is you're going to come down to the bottom and select all the solutions. So you hit all the solutions, and then you're going to come over to optimize, and it's going to come up with some solutions for you. So you can hit continue, and it says no solution. And the reason why is because there's some kind of collision in this. So we can kind of minimize that. and we can see it doesn't like it because there's going to be a collision on one of those bends. So what we can do is we can try to go back to our drawing and maybe make some corrections over here. We can take out this part, that might be the wrong part, or just delete that segment and just kind of leave it like that. We'll go back to calculate all the solutions, optimize it, continue. Go to simulate. Make it a little smaller so you can kind of see it there. Then we can kind of bend it using the bend lines. So now we can come down here and bend it, and we can see that you know, we can do this here. So you can see how it bends. Start it out flat, hit simulate, hit continue. There's your first bend. Continue again. There's your next bend. So you can see that we can make that part. If you like it and everything is good, you can go back over here. Go up here to automatic. Go to the graphic if you want. Now you can go and you'll see that you have the bottom part here. It's showing you how it's going to lay in the machine, and the top part here is showing you how the part will be bent. So you can turn the machine on at this point and actually cycle through, step on the pedal, and make these particular bends. So that's going to be your graphic mode. You can go back to semi-automatic if you want, and you can see it in the coding mode. And you can do it over here and do the same thing. You can come back over here to automatic and also see the code. And if you wanted to do this, just basically in the code, you could do that and cycle through it, and you'll see that it'll just be like the other one. You might want to come back over here though and set your bend parameters and adjust your bend time. So go back to your editor before you start bending this. So if you're over here, in the graphic mode, and now you want to go back to the editor because you like everything, you want to come back over here and you want to set your bend time. And you might want to adjust your muting before you go into the graphics and start bending it from there, or in this mode here. Another thing you can do with this press brake is you can do Dutch folding. So basically that's hemming. So if you want to set up a hem, you can do that as well. And it gives you a calculation. You would be inserting a hem right here, and it gives you this line where you'll see it's 0, and it gives you an estimated stroke depth. You'll have to do this in a manual mode first, or in a semi-automatic mode. You'll have to try it, bring it down, see exactly where the hemming ledge is on the punch, and